Thank you for joining us for our second session of the morning. Super exciting session. I'm glad to have Kerry Thorpe, Communications Director from Ben & Jerry's, join me on stage for the Honesty Sessions. Welcome, Kerry.
Hi everyone.
Let's start off with your journey. It's always really interesting to hear a leader's journey. So can you just talk to us about your journey and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I studied English and film, and then as most uni graduates, didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my career. Did work experience at the BBC, and then somehow found my way onto an MTV internship. And then I was at MTV for 4 years.
That must have been super interesting.
It was so fun. I worked on loads of productions, so MTV Lives at the time, so MTV Live Coldplay, Shakira, things like that. And then found myself onto Pimp My Ride International. So I was pimping cars, and don't know if you know, Pimp My Ride International had Fat Joe and Little John. So it was based in Alkmaar, just outside Amsterdam. I've got some nodders, which is Pimp My Ride fans.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, I went traveling for a while.
Yeah.
Came back, and my identical twin sister is a special needs teacher in hospital schools.
Oh,
so
wow.
she's like an angel.
She's
to
got a real job.
All of the family, an absolute angel. So I decided I wanted to stay in communications, but do something that was making a more of a positive difference.
Yes.
And then I went on to a charity called Media Trust.
Yeah, it's not a Media Trust.
Yeah, and that connects people from the media industry who have communication skills with NGOs and campaigners who need to use those skills, resources, and platforms. So I was head of comms there for a while. And then I saw an advert that said, do you want to be our communications superstar? Write on the back of an ice cream lid in 100 words why you should get the job as comms lead at Ben & Jerry's. So I got the ice cream lid, crossed out Jerry and put Kerry, put a picture of me and my twin sister on the back, and then got the interview and got the job.
Fabulous.
And since then I've been at Ben & Jerry's leading their comms for 8 years now.
8 years,
Yes.
fabulous. I'll talk a bit about that journey in a minute, but you've talked about your twin sister. I'm sure she's an inspiration, but who else has inspired you throughout your career?
Yeah, well, I think I've been really lucky in my career. I think, first of all, I would say my dad's been an inspiration in that he taught us growing up that anything boys could do, we could do equally as well, if not better. So I felt like I've always come from a very competitive place. He would never let us win at games. It was always a competitive environment at
Probably
home.
being a twin as well.
Yeah, and
I'm
being
sure
a twin
that,
too.
yeah.
You've got an inbuilt competitor. So that was great. And then in business, actually, I've had quite a lot of female bosses who I've watched really push themselves forward, drive change. I've had strong female leaders who've been both empathetic but also driven.
Yeah.
And at Ben & Jerry's, for example, my last 2 managing directors have both been women.
Oh, amazing.
So that's been really useful for me, I
Yeah.
think. I haven't had to look too far to see who could be someone's career that I could emulate.
Exactly. That career
Exactly.
progression exists for women in the business.
Yeah.
Awesome. How about barriers? Have you had to navigate any barriers throughout your career? And sorry, in the second part of that, do you think that barriers are still existing for women in the industry?
Yeah,
now?
I definitely think so. In that, at Ben & Jerry's, for example, we ran an unconscious bias training, which was fascinating because it made me so aware that as a woman, when you go into a group of people, I found that I'm always conscious of the fact that I am the woman.
Yeah.
And often Ben & Jerry's is owned by Unilever. At Unilever, there's lots of men in senior positions. There's lots of, even I think the body language that you might enter a room in, I found that men might get up first and kind of lean in and shake your hand, and lots of things that the men in Ben & Jerry's weren't aware of. And through this unconscious bias training, a lot of the men at Ben & Jerry's were allies from the beginning and came up and said, I had no idea.
That this is what I was doing.
We see you as chatty or confident or whichever. We didn't know you'd ever walk into a room and feel nervous. And I was like, are you kidding? Like all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really, really helped, that there are barriers there, but male allies, I think, are what you need. And I've got great business partners at Ben & Jerry's who are men who value my opinion, who don't have to summarize the end of a meeting, you know, when that kind of happens when you're saying a point and then a man will say your point in the same way back.
Mansplaining. We've all been mansplained.
Or have a man introduce the agenda of a meeting that's your meeting. All of that stuff. I think the men at Ben & Jerry's are really conscious of that. And I think it does take that equal consciousness to make it a kind of level playing field at work.
The allyship piece that you mentioned is really important, and if you look at the female leaders bar and the whole idea around this, and as I was saying to you before, we came up with this concept 6 weeks ago, and we've got 26 sponsors and great speakers here. But looking around, we need It's a few men in the
Yeah,
audience.
props to the
but
guys here.
Yeah, we
Ooh,
can see
good
you. But it's a
props.
few men in the audience,
Thank
which is
you.
great because we
Thank you.
need the men to listen in. We need you to be allies. We need you to be supporters, don't we?
Yeah, I think I was looking around the room earlier and did see there weren't many guys in this space. And I think it's definitely something to take away, that the more guys that turn up, but then also I think we want to get to a point where we're not really seeing gender so much, and that actually everyone just has a level playing field. But it takes everyone to lean in.
Yeah, it does. Talking about that not seeing gender piece, do you think it's easier for women starting out in their careers now, or in our industry, than it was when we started, or is it just
I don't
different
know.
challenges?
And I also don't. Maybe for me, it might be in that I think people are more conscious of the energy they bring into a room. More businesses are doing unconscious bias training. I think at someone like Ben & Jerry's, we're on that journey and we know that we're never going to know how every group feels, and we've got to learn.
Yeah.
But then I'm a middle-class white woman,
Yeah.
so I don't know the barriers that other women face.
Yeah.
And I think also our industries don't pay very well at starting salaries. So I imagine there's a lot of nepotism going on. I imagine that people aren't being paid fairly. I imagine if you can't pay for your fee to get to work for an internship, how are you going to do that internship?
Yeah.
So I think maybe I'm the wrong person to talk about barriers. I think probably a lot still exists.
Yeah.
I think there's another journey to do, that women don't just have to be mothers.
Yes.
I think there's we've swung such a way that there's so much support for maternity and paternity.
Yeah.
But what about women who choose not to be mothers or who can't be mothers? I feel like sometimes there's a culture of, okay, now you're in your 30s, off you go and be a mum. We'll make everyone else move up.
Yeah.
But there's not so much of a culture of, hey, let's try and develop you regardless of what journey you take, motherhood or not, whether you can or can't.
That's a really interesting point. Looking at Ben & Jerry's, you're quite an activist brand.
Yeah.
You're quite a disruptor brand.
Yes.
And a brand that does things progressively. So what can other brands learn? What can other people take away? What can other companies learn from what you've done?
This is fun.
Space?
We're doing in the Hexagon stage, me and Chris at the back there are doing a presentation at 2 p.m. on a world at war with woke and how brands have to pick a side.
Awesome.
And so I think from a brand and communications perspective, do the work, I think. Get to understand the issues that you're working on, not from your own perspective, but from community's perspective. Pick a side and then stick to that side. So I think with progression comes pushback. So if you decide to take on an issue because it's the right thing to do to drive progressive change in the world, don't back out when a few consumers boycott you. If we backed out every time someone tried to boycott us, we would not still be in business.
Yeah.
I've lost count of the amount of times I've read a comment on our ice cream Instagram page saying, stick to ice cream, why do you care about politics?
Yeah.
So I just think be brave with it.
Yeah.
Stay true to your values, know who you are, and then your loyal fan base will follow you.
Yeah, that authenticity piece is key, isn't it? Because people see through it if it doesn't align with
definitely.
your brand. Yeah.
Yeah, like a bullshit-ometer, isn't there?
Exactly.
For sure. So.
Exactly. And customers are skeptical. So
Yes, and they should be. Like
Yeah, of
everyone should
course.
be skeptical of big companies like Ben & Jerry's. We want you to question us. Like go ahead, for sure.
What are you excited about? What in the industry, in Ben & Jerry's, what's kind of coming up next for you?
Do you know what? I'm excited, I guess, I'm excited to see where the B Corp movement goes. I think there's a lot of ambition around B Corps to be more, I guess, provocative, to kind of take on more of a stand, to go beyond a certification to be a movement of better businesses that drive change in the world. I'm excited to see what the next generation does. Like, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And I'd like to see how much the people in our business drive our social agenda forward, because it's led by the company. Ben & Jerry started it over 40 years ago now, and then the company is what decides what do we care about and why, in partnership with NGOs and in partnership with charities. And I'm interested to see where that goes in the future. I'm worried though about how tribal the world's becoming, how when you stand up for progressive causes, there is a loud minority who will try and take you down, who will call it woke washing, who will try and say that you aren't allowed an opinion. And I think we've just got to stand in solidarity with those movements and communities who need those in power to use their voice in a bold, clear and progressive way.
Fabulous. Last question. This isn't, you haven't seen this question yet, but it should be fine.
Excited.
But advice for the audience, you know,
Yeah.
lots of people here maybe starting out in their career, midway through their career, maybe thinking about a career change, a pivot. What would you advise somebody who to take those next steps in their
Oh God,
in
no
their
one
career?
knows what they're doing, do they? Like, no one knows what they're doing or where they're going. I would never ever have thought that I'd write on the back of an ice cream lid 100 words and cross out Jerry and Kerry and be here. I think just be in the right places at the right time and keep doing you. I think I got the MTV job by emailing this person. Somebody gave me an email of someone at MTV HR, and I emailed them every single Friday for 6 months until they said, if you don't get this interview, never ever email us again. And so I think persistence is one, like persistence, confidence. And I think now you do have lots of social platforms that you can get your personality out more easily. So I think use
Is that
TikTok.
something that you look at Ben & Jerry when you're hiring?
If I was hiring, I definitely would. I think it would be an absolute plus if someone on the application said, oh, and I've got this TikTok channel that's been growing popularity, or I do a blog, or actually I photograph in my spare time. Like,
You're going to start getting
be
emails every
multifaceted
Friday. you
now, for
realise
sure.
this.
Oh yeah, come to me. I'll give you free ice cream if nothing else.
Kerry, it's been awesome talking
Thank
to you. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.